Welcome to the Business Awareness Hour with Norman, the Awareness Guy. Now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Business Awareness Hour. My name is Norman Wasserman. Some people call me the Awareness Guy. Some people call me a lot of other things, which we're not going to discuss, here on the air. But one thing I will say is we have the lovely Linda Grace Farley as our co-host for this evening. And Linda, welcome.
Well, Norm, welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And at your service, sir.
I'm very, very happy that you joined us tonight. For those people that have not seen the show before, let's tell everybody what you do, Linda.
Oh, my practice is Cycles of Life Management Services, and where I help people to reconnect on a body, mind, and spirit perspective. And I promote a product associated with the mind, or I should say the body and mind. It is the Beamer. And a lot of people may have heard of the Beamer. It is a FDA Class 2 cleared medical device that helps to improve blood flow and helps the cells to detox. So I am very, very privileged and humbled and honored to be part of that organization.
And I'm privileged and honored to have you on the show on Wednesday evenings. And our guests are even more excited to have you on the show. You get great testimonials, which if anybody would like to see the testimonials, happy to go and do it. Another person that's going to get a testimonial this evening is our guest, Jay Cohen from Advanced Security Consulting. Jay, come on board. There you go.
Hello, Jay.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Nice to be here.
And with the world like it is, Norm, I think we need Jay at this pivotal time. We need his expertise to help our audience to get on board and become aware of all those blind spots. Would you say, Jay? They're kind of like blind spots. You think you're covered and you're not. So Jay is the man.
Absolutely. That's the key to it all.
Yeah, he's a subject matter expert. So go ahead, Norm.
Let's get this show on the road here. You've been in with Advanced Security Consulting, which is your business. You've had it now about how many years?
I'm just going on 2 years, coming after 24 years in the retail security side.
So when you say retail security, are you talking about like an ADT type of business?
Yeah, exactly. I was security consulting security account representative for major corporations over the last 2 decades or 2 decades plus. And I decided I'd rather be a B2C because I feel that the consumer has been losing out and not getting everything they need or a true representation of what they need. And which causes disparities in proposals and ultimately the end result, which is what they get installed in their home or business.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long can you mention which firm it was which company it was that you worked?
Well, actually, you hit the nail on the head. I started my career with ADT, went through the transitional period when Tyco Integrated Security bought them. Then they sold them off, and then subsequently they joined with Johnson Controls, and then I went back to ADT to a manager that I greatly respected and really enjoyed working with. But at the end of the day, the industry really changed, and corporate America wants to keep getting bigger and bigger, and it's at the expense of the consumer. And at this stage of the game, there's absolutely no reason for that.
You mentioned also that you work for some major companies. Did you do security for the major companies?
Well, no, I was in the sales. I was in the sales, doing sales for.
It was retail sales versus corporate.
Well, meaning I was selling to in my career,
right?
Residential, and then into the commercial sector. My forte is really more in the commercial sector, only because I've been doing it for the greater time of that 24 years. But at the end of the day, assessments are assessments, and determining client needs and helping unearth their vulnerabilities is the same, whether it's a house or a business.
Well, their exposures are greater, but when you have the model, like you say, Jay, it doesn't matter. You're just scaling it down to a residential versus a big conglomerate, right? But the model is the same. It's just the equipment that is more,
Right. And there are different levels of equipment based on a specific need. So yes, but you're right. It's taking a model and scaling it up or scaling it down based on the application that I'm involved in at the time.
So how did you get started? I'm sorry, Norm.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What inspired you to get started in security? Do you have any background in like law enforcement or anything of that nature?
No. Actually, my start of my career and my education was in hotel, restaurant, hospitality management. Okay. And then after the first 3 years, we had gone into a recession, which was in the early, 91. Yes, I'm that old. But
no, I got that. I got that wrapped up.
But, so. And then when I left that job or lost that job, first of all, it was a blessing in disguise, and everything happens for a reason. But it was a blessing in disguise because, quite honestly, I liked my weekends and I enjoyed my life a lot better, not having to worry about if my 11 p.m. shift for the hotel didn't show up, who has to schlep up to the hotel and be there until coverage can come in, or to stay there during the overnight. And so it just became something, as much as I like the customer service aspect of it, it was a very short-lived career. And then after a year actually of being unemployed, I found myself in a couple of other retail things, in actually men's clothing, opening up a couple of McDonald's for somebody who opened up, was doing some franchise, bought a couple of franchises. But then ultimately it came down to a point where I had this opportunity to really be a client advocate, working for a company called SecurityLink from Ameritech, which was in the late 90s, who subsequently, within the first 2 years, got acquired by ADT. And that's what happens. They acquire and then acquire and acquire. And all of a sudden, they're this huge monstrosity. But, everybody below them gets lost in the shuffle.
But Jay, I would imagine in the hospitality industry, you saw your share of theft.
Oh, absolutely.
Exposure. So you got a nice taste back then that prompted you to go that route.
Between theft from the hotel rooms to physical assaults and things like that, really stepped up. And they didn't really, these places like these weren't really using cameras back then the way they use cameras now. So a lot of things weren't documented. And now, in some cases, a video surveillance system is way more, or I should say much more needed than an intrusion detection system, because the camera system can pick up the intruder. It may not, you may have to research and go, but if you can get there for evidentiary purposes, if somebody breaks into an unmanned area and there's nothing to see what's around, if they get in and do a snatch, a smash and grab and go, then that's where cameras really became more prevalent in the needs of both residential and commercial security.
Was this your first job out of school?
No, my first job out of school was working actually for a company at the time called ARA Leisure Services, which has gone through their changes, and it's still known as like Aramark. And they handle a lot of that. They handle a lot of schools. They do a lot of that kind of management. But that was my first job out of college. And then, like I said, that lasted until 1991, where, we had my first experience with a recession, being in the workforce, and I found myself not being in the workforce anymore.
Wasn't ARA an event
Well,
company?
yes, they had they had different divisions, but their one division was that they went after the bids or the contracts for things like the Palisades Interstate Park Commission, national parks, things of that nature. So my position with ARA Leisure Services was overseeing food service operations for the lakes, and then subsequently coming in and managing the hotel for the Palisade Interstate Park Commission up in the Bear Mountain Inn and the surrounding lakes like Lake Welch, Lake Tiarati, Lake Sebago. Yeah, so that was my first exposure to the business, to the main business world after college. And like I said, that was 3 years, and then a couple of things over the next 6 before I found the opportunity in the security account executive role, and then I've been doing that ever since.
I'm going to tell you a little story. You want to go ahead, Lynn?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so do you feel, because I'm one about feel, Jay, do you feel that you were destined to go into the profession that you're in?
I'm going to answer yes to that, because there were things that happened in my life much later on in life that got me to really believe that things happen for a reason. Okay. And if things didn't happen, I wouldn't be sitting here right now with the two of you and with everybody that's listening in. So yes, I believe I was destined to be where I am today.
So
I'm
the
going to ask
awareness
you,
out of business, right, Norm? The awareness is more than just make people.
That's what it's
aware of
about.
your
It's all about
business,
the
but
awareness.
without the awareness, the business would not exist. So I'm
You
sorry.
mentioned
Norm,
about ARA. I'm gonna tell a fast story. Back in when I was about 13, 14 years old, I used to work in Yankee Stadium, and here's Yankee Stadium security. You would pick up a cart on the ground floor. They would load it up with the hot dogs. I worked giant football games, so it was nice and cold. So they would give us vats of coffee, cans of soda, coffee cups in leaves of 50, 52 a leaf. The hot dogs, 52 a box. And your job was to go back to your station, count them, and they allowed, now everybody knew this, they allowed for security to be shortage.
Yeah.
So if you counted and there were 2 hot dogs over, the 52 hot dogs over went into your pocket.
Right.
If you were allowed to be short, 2 or 3 hot dogs per box went into you. That was this was, you would ride down the freight elevator. I can't tell you how many staged robberies there were in the freight elevator because there was nobody there to watch it.
Well, on the same lines, when I was overseeing the lakes, they had the same carts for the ices, the Italian ices, the ice creams, the hot dogs, and everything was based, like on the ices, everything was based on the cups, and it's so easy that when you're rolling your cart that there was wind, right? So now wind knocks the cups off. They're flimsy. They knock off. And all of a sudden there's a lot of loss. But was there really a lot of loss? Because all they had to do was count it out of their inventory. But they're not going to say, oh, well, this was a 5-tub container of ices, of cherry ice. But, we can tell that there was 37 servings equivalent to going out when it could, because even the servings weren't equal. If it's supposed to be 3 ounces, maybe it's 4 ounces on this, 2.5 on that. So there was no way to make sure that everything was exact, and that they had such an allowance that people were making money above and beyond their hourly rate.
Mm.
Now, are you actually a designer of systems?
Yes, I can honestly call myself a designer, because at the end of the day, I've got 24 years experience in working with the end user to help unearth their needs and what's going to make them feel comfortable in their environment. So yes, and I can go in there and design, but my ultimately, and I do consider myself the architect of your security system or your security solution.
Mhm.
Just like you're going to go to an architect to get the design based on the dimensions, the square footage, the ceiling heights, the ceiling types,
Mhm.
as to what you want, and then you put it out to bid for the GCs. I'm the same. That one aspect of my business is the same way, and it doesn't matter if it's new construction, a building, or a house that is existing that doesn't have anything, or somebody that is moving into a new location that has something in place. Invariably, they just get the system turned on, but they have absolutely no clue if that system even comes close to meeting their requirement. So
And if they've
that's
been hacked, right, Jay? I mean,
I'm
would
sorry.
you look at, I mean, I don't know much about the, security systems and stuff, but in today's environment, people are, software is getting hacked like crazy. So if someone they come into an environment and they have the hardware that's there, what's to say that somebody didn't have a computer, like they have access on the side?
Well, depending on the system you're talking about, I mean, anything is hackable per se. I mean, with a lot of cybersecurity issues these days, and some of the bigger companies, and one which I won't be specific about, but I did mention earlier on in our dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
what was hacked a few months ago, and there was a substantial ransom being demanded for it. Now, personally, I don't think they paid it, but I would also advise not to pay it because they're never getting there. First of all, it's still going to be tainted. They're never going to get it back whole, and
That's right.
they're still gonna have to rebuild the entire infrastructure with better encryption.
Mm-hmm.
And besides having to spend tens of millions of dollars to figure out how it happened in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
So what do you
anybody,
recommend to those types of
well, see, it good question. Because anybody is susceptible to hacking. The
yes.
smaller companies, the more boutique type companies, mid-sized companies are can be more easily hacked or infiltrated.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's less likely to happen because they're not storing the critical data with a lot of national security, homeland security, national institutions, airports, subways, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of infrastructure. They're for the most part, they're not in that they're not playing in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So they're less likely because there's no profit in it for the hackers.
Correct.
To
Right.
say, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
$10,000 versus $10 million, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to be in their radar, so to speak.
It was way more advantageous for the hacker to spend the time to figure out the best way to infiltrate that bigger company
Mm-hmm.
than it would spending less time to get to a mom and pop because they just don't have the critical data that they're looking for.
There's huge egos with the hackers.
Yeah.
That's a game for them. Remember years ago, there was the war games where the kid
Right.
hacked into the right,
Right.
and it's that mentality is like, yeah, let me see how good I am, right, and then how I can beat this hacker. I mean, it's a game of the egos. But they have, well, they probably do understand the implications, but the amount of people that they're impacting by their actions is, we have to be secure, and our safety is primal, so
Right.
we need
Exactly.
that, and that's
Well,
why
you
we
did.
need someone like you, Jay.
Everybody needs a J.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So could you tell us a story? What's an interesting story you'd like to share with our
Well,
audience tonight?
something that is very, very commonplace
Mhm.
is, you know, there's been a lot of systems that have been designed or seemed like it was the right solution on paper.
Mhm.
But then when it was put into action, there were critical points missing because and the problem with, well, not that it can't happen to any, well, it shouldn't happen, but it
Mhm.
happens all too often. The thing is like, and this also comes to where tying into the balance of the system, or having somebody like me come in and consult and help design the solution that works for you, because at that point, even if there's something that was overlooked, not addressed, however you want to term it, and it can happen, I'm not disparaging anybody on that, but now at least, the solutions that are being proposed all on the same level.
Mhm.
So, if I'm going to, Norm Security, Linda Security, and J Security to bid these jobs, they're all bidding it on the same thing.
Mhm.
Invariably, when a homeowner or a business owner asks brings in those two or three integrators or service integrators, they'll go, "You're the professional, tell me what I need." But that's not the way it should be. That
No,
and
no.
I've lost a lot of deals explaining to people that I need your input. You've been in this building, you've been in this house, you know where you have areas of concern. Yes, I can offer interjection and idea and something down the road, which can, and I do that, I'll create that design based on the the specific the specifically determined or expressed concern of the consumer, and then I'll put my stuff off to the side as almost like a Chinese menu kind of
Mhm.
concept, that this is what you're asking for, this is what you unearthed, this is what we design, this is some suggestions that I have. So ultimately, they can get equal comparative bids based on the initial design, and then they can get a secondary bid on the potential additives. So
Mhm.
this,
So here's a question for you. I'm a client. I get your phone number. I have a friend that was watching the Business Awareness Hour. He heard about Jay Cohn, so he called me. He called you up, and he says, "I'm interested in what you can do. I have a house. I have a 5-bedroom home. I got sliding glass doors, 2 sets of sliding glass doors. I have windows all over the place. I got a front door that people can see in. They're in the front door. And Jay, I heard some great things about you. What would you do to get a deal from me?"
okay, well,
Can I add
ultimate,
another one in that before you start thinking, Jay?
I'm
And I
sorry.
also work. I
Oh,
also work from home, and I'm a CEO of my company.
okay.
Let's kick it up a notch, like Emeril
Right.
Lagasse says, right?
So ultimately, listen, everything that you just said to me, the descriptors are all well and good. Number one, I can design without being on site because, especially with a set of drawings, and then, of course, a specific questionnaire that I ask to all my clients that I deal with remotely.
Mhm.
Ultimately, if the location is within drivable distance. And to me, that's within right now a minimum of 4 states: New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, which I can get to with ease. Um, I'm going to look to schedule a time to meet. Okay. Because at the end of the day, nothing like a physical being on
Sure.
site, a physical assessment is because
It's necessary.
words don't tell you everything. You
That's right.
have to see the environment.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. And then from that environment, then I'm going to ask you questions. So, but now that, but, and my, generally right now, and not getting into pricing because it's just that, but my pricing is based on certain levels of a situation, like because even I still have that retail mentality.
Mhm.
Okay, when I worked for ADT and all the other companies, I got a base salary, I got commission, all that other stuff. So at the end of the day, I still earned money whether I sold anything or not. And then I earned based on what the deals that I penned.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
right now, I don't. I mean, under most circumstances, I don't want the consumer to hurt or to pay if they don't end up moving forward with something.
Mhm.
So right now, under the average scenario, and which is to say, standard house property that's like up on the road, no 400-foot driveway with security gates, something like that. My consultation in a building, a commercial structure up to 20,000 square feet. My assessment is complimentary. Okay, I don't get paid unless a deal is penned with the installation contractor that's going to install and
Right.
service, and that number is worked into the contractor's number. So ultimately, the client will be paying, but they're paying me through them if they go forward with something. I don't want that's where I'm still taking a retail mentality. If you don't go with a system that we've created together, then I don't get paid. That's the risk that I'm willing to take to educate people and to be an advocate for people to make sure that they're being treated honestly and fairly across the board. Because you bring in those three contractors, and this guy gives you a $3,000 price. This one gives you a $3,500, and the last one gives you $4,200. People by nature gravitate towards the low price because like, oh, well, this guy's overcharging me, or he's overkilling me with the system. Well, but you
Mhm.
don't know that, and you don't know how to compare and contrast against the three proposals to see why is this at 3,000, why is this at 3,500, and why is this at 4,200. So
Mhm.
now you go with that 3,000, and then during the installation process, oh, Mr. Customer, we never discussed this, or this was never brought into the equation. And now all of a sudden your 3,000 is 5,500. Now you don't have such a warm and fuzzy feeling about the person you're going to be in bed with for 3 to 5 years minimally, and
Mhm.
you can't get out of it.
The
And
code
that's
of
what
ethics is violated on that, Jay.
yeah.
That's what what do they call it? They um, there's a term for it where
Well,
they
one of the
they
terms
low
it's called
cost it.
bait and switch.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And but 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 that's not always a fair response to that. That's not my answer to everything, because when you put people in charge of your need and your concern, yes, there's going to be companies that are going to say, let's get in the door and we can build on it from there.
But
But
they're not trustworthy.
right, but once you sign on
But
the
you don't
dotted
know
line,
they're not trustworthy until it's too late.
Right. So that would be to me, Jay, an opportunity to do a, like you say, a lunch and learn,
mhm,
right? Where you do a something at the library and say how to protect yourself, right? Because I think in today's environment that we are witnessing, I mean, I've heard the horror stories of ranchers in Texas, right? Where they
yeah,
come home and their house has been invaded, right? Or squatters come in and take over a vacation rental, not a
Uh-huh.
vacation rental, an investment property that happened to be empty, and they come in and they have those issues as well. So um, being forthcoming and explaining the nuances, how they can make a decision for themselves, they're going to see right through it that you're more trustworthy than the rest. They're just trying to get the sale.
Jay,
Right.
I want to ask you a question. You came on this show for a particular reason. The name of the show is The Awareness Guy. All right. What do you want people to know about Jay Cohn and your business? What do you want them to know about you?
My job is about being a client advocate. Awareness is critical. So the show is perfect for exactly that. Education is critical because if you don't understand what you're getting involved with, more things of this nature are going to happen. But it's also to show where, going with bigger companies just because they're the leaders in the industry, when there are other companies that are lesser in size, but equal, if not even more exceptional in customer service, accountability, and longevity in the industry, there's no reason to pay that premium. And which is also another one aspect of my business is if a homeowner or a business has a relationship with but they're not happy. They're not being treated right. They feel they're getting overcharged, or they don't feel that the charge is worth the service. I can work with them to broker them over to other well-vetted security organizations that I've had experience with over the last 24 years. And in a lot of cases, especially when I'm taking them from the nationals into more medium to boutique, they're going to save a reasonable amount of money. And it's better to have that money in their pocket than in the conglomerates that are only out for themselves and their shareholders.
And Jay, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I do have a website.
Okay.
And within that website, obviously my phone number is there. My email address is there. I do have a Facebook page.
Jay, why don't you tell everybody what your phone number is?
So, the funny thing is that I have the phone number, and I always give the one that's on the screen because it's the one that's most direct to me. So right now, quite honestly, this number, the 914-403-5636, which although is not the number on the website, is a more direct line with me because my phone number is actually tied into my iPad, and I can't get to it as easily on Bluetooth when I'm driving. And I like to pick up the call as quickly as I can because if somebody's finding it important to call me, it's important for me to be able to pick up that call or be able to call them back in a reasonable amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and what's going to be a reasonable situation for me to do so I can pay my bills is take that short break that we talked about before the show got started. And so everybody just stay tuned for a couple of minutes, and we'll be right back.
My name is Lisa Rodina. I am a commercial loan advisor and broker. Have you been finding that your business's cash flow is not where you need it to be? Have you found yourself taking from your personal accounts to meet your business's obligations? Have you found that those quick solutions of quick money are starting to get awfully expensive? My job is to find the right funding product for my clients so they can get back to working in their business and give me the task of finding the best options for their situation. Give us a call today to learn more. 516-268-0350.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Friend Entertainment USA. My name is Norman Wasserman. I am also known as the Music Man. Let me just tell you a little bit about Friend Entertainment. We put on concerts for charities, and we do that everywhere from New York to Las Vegas. We do R&B, Motown, rock and roll, jazz, whatever it is that you wish. Friend Entertainment will deliver the best of the best for you and your charity. Here are some of the names of the talent that have performed with us on our stage. Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, The Temptations, Earth, Wind and Fire, the one and only ELO, Elton John himself, Kool and the Gang, and the fabulous Donna Summer. Go to our website, friendentusa.com. That's www.friendentusa.com, or feel free to call us at 631-698-9696. 631-698-9696, and we'll see you at the next show.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Business Awareness Hour with our special guest, Jay Cohn from Advanced Security Consulting, who was creating an awful lot of awareness for himself, and he doesn't realize it yet. But there's a lot of awareness going on because if you listen to him, he's a very sincere businessman. And he wants to do what's right in his business and make his clients happy. And we live, again, if you don't know somebody, you don't know him until you get to meet him. So we're meeting Jay, and he's making a great presentation for himself. Let's go to the website.
Okay.
All right.
All right. There we are. Okay. So I am seeing Advanced Security Consulting. Dylan, are you bringing this up so everybody could see it as well? There we are. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at what can we? Well, we already know about Jay, right? Here's the services. So let's see. Could you elaborate a little bit, Jay, for our audience on what services do you provide from a system and design perspective?
So from system design, it really does equate to anything low voltage. It's security, like intrusion detection, like a burglar alarm system, access control, cameras, intercom, even things to the degree of shooter detection systems. When COVID came out, I had got because of my tenure with the Tyco or Johnson Controls and ADT, we got into the thermal imaging, everything as far as for testing for the testing for COVID and stuff like that. The only thing I cannot, because of code compliance, design, even though I have a good knowledge of it, is fire systems to code. Because you in a house, in a residence, if you have a 110 or a fire system that works in tandem, means that if one device goes off, they all sound. Then you can do supplemental protection with a low voltage monitored smoke detection. If you don't, but the 110 systems cannot communicate to the central stations without a lot of work to be done because you'd have to put in relays to step down and then allow it to tie into the panel, because you can't tie them directly into the panel because it'll blow that.
Can it go into Wi-Fi to call? No, I'm not. Well, this is not my expertise. But.
I don't have a lot of experience with the 110. That's the electrician that's doing the wiring in your house or building to that code. In the residential sector, you can actually have one or the other. You can have a 110 system, which has its own circuit breaker, but sounds locally, and then have supplemental low voltage for monitoring purposes. Or you can do it through the low voltage to code. So you can actually get greater coverage without having to duplicate or double up on devices in certain areas. On the commercial side, there's no such animal. It's code compliant. There are regulations based on NFPA 72, which is a low voltage fire code. There are ADA American Disability Act requirements as far as things that need to be in compliance. I cannot design them legal because I don't have the certifications to do so. But the one thing is I know engineers that I can bring in and introduce to the client. They can design the system, and then I can take over on the bid solicitation, helping them streamline and get the bidding done. So I can use my experience and knowledge, and the end user or the consumer can focus in on more critical areas that needs their attention. And then when the systems are ready for deployment, then I bring them in for end user education and programming, because there's certain things that they're going to need to provide for programming purposes.
Because, the one thing that stands out with that, Jay, it would be a nice feature to partner with somebody that is aware of the fire system, guidance system, and all the bells and whistles, as well as all the compliance stuff, so that this way, you can present it to any small business owner or a residential and saying, so here's what I offer, but I do have people I work with that would be able to do that. Because if you lose everything in a fire, security is irrelevant, right? At
Useless.
Exactly. So this kind of enhances what your customer service.
Correct.
If that makes sense. Okay, great. Because I see phone and data, and my mind goes to, well, my cell phone can call the fire department, but I imagine that the two systems don't talk, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Now, and the thing, but there are also, because it has to come from the control panel to the central station, and it doesn't go directly to the fire department. Everything gets fed through the central station. Back in the day, there was direct connection to the fire departments, but now they don't, because the fire departments could be sent all over the place, and it ends up, there could be mistakes. So everything goes through a monitored central station, and then and there are protocols on the fire. On fire, it's an immediate call to the fire department. On intrusion, there are protocols to prevent false alarms. On fire, because and the term I used to use is an intruder can pick and choose what they want. A fire is indiscriminate. It's going to go after everything in its path.
Absolutely.
So they have to be a little bit more up in, a little less lenient when it comes to fire, because especially with the older buildings nowadays, we don't need any infernos, or we really want to mitigate, major damage where we can.
And with the recent earthquake that New York had, right?
Yes.
Imagine that those older buildings, a little compromising is going there, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
There certainly was no.
I'm sorry, Mark.
There certainly was no planning for earthquakes back in the day.
No. But at the same time, when, like you say, no planning back in the day, and now you have to question the integrity of the structures, right? And they may be now hidden disasters waiting to happen, as I like to say. Yeah. Yeah. So what markets do you serve, Jay? Let's talk about that a little bit.
My experience takes me from the small on the commercial side, the smallest of shops, mom and pop, little stores of any nature. There's really nobody I can't handle. I have experience with greater than 1 million square foot warehouse and distribution centers. I've done a lot of work with municipalities, with schooling, K through 12 and colleges and universities. Now, with some of that, I'm a little bit limited right now because of my the lack of people that I have that can provide services under the buying groups that are required to, like a New York State contract or any other type of buying power, because of the pricing requirements, the certified payroll requirements. So right now, unless it's like a charter school, like charter schools, nurseries, daycares, things like that fall under private institution, I can help, like, from here till eternity. I've worked in the health industry, hospitals, rehabilitation centers, group homes, whether it be a hospital type structure or the remote residences that they have for people with special needs or behavioral issues, where they're housing them outside they're not living at home, they're living in these group homes. So on the commercial and on the residential side, generally self-standing, and there has to be self-standing. Yes, apartment. I would always have some kind of security in an apartment or a condo complex where it's a common area, common halls. But that's not really something that makes sense, because that's very basic. That it's just a matter of if you've got 12 rooms, 12 apartments on that floor, depending on how people can get into the common area, you're really only protecting yourself from the residents within. So, but I can work with those same property owners or boards, the board of directors, property management, where they have door release systems, intercom systems with door release, telephone systems, like the low voltage, like voice over IP and Wi-Fi systems, and any building that requires protection coverage within the common areas.
Jay, one of the things that resonates with me, let's be honest, there's opportunists wherever you go, and they're going to look for flaws within a like a group home, for example, right? And in group homes, they are manned, in different ways throughout the 24-hour cycle. So they also have pharmaceutical drugs.
I'm sorry?
They have pharmaceutical drugs.
Correct.
So an opportunist, knowing this, would immediately, come in and, so I would think that security has to be in an environment like that, not only to protect the residents, but also, the drugs that's there.
Well, the drugs are secure. Number one, they're behind the door, a main door. They're also, each drug cart is locked. It's mandatory that you have to lock it if you just turn around. You can stand there, and so they are pretty secure in handling of all the drugs.
And to add to that, is number one, to get into those rooms are going to be locked, and they're going to be on access control. And that's going to be based on, who has access at what times of the day. And if medications are being dispensed at 8 a.m., 1 p.m., and 6 p.m., well, they can be programmed so that they're only available to be accessed between 8 to 9, 1 to 2, and 6 to 7, so that the staff can't get in. There's no way for them to override that to get in there. Everything has to be controlled from the head end or programmed from the head end. In the same one group home, that deals with more behavioral issues than physical issues. As far as that's concerned, they monitor the doors. So they have alarms on the doors that only go locally or because you don't need central station for that, but it goes locally, but it also will alert to through an SMS, through a text message, or an email, or whatever the case may be. And that can also go back to the home office where they can see what's going on. The executive director can see and call up and say, hey, what's going on? Or they can use it as a means of monitoring their staff to see if they're logging events properly. This store, yeah.
No, go ahead, finish up.
So if somebody opens a door at 12:50 p.m. and on the next day when they get the manifest of what happened the day before, that log better be there. And the executive director or the director of security who was monitoring this stuff can see, okay, they're going to know what happened because they're getting an alert. If they don't see it on there, why wasn't it logged? Why aren't you doing your job? So it's a very good way to monitor productivity and accuracy in people who were put in charge of other people's safety.
You told us you were talking about other major companies and people overpaying, and then there's a problem and you get a phone call. You also started to tell a story, an interesting story about one of your clients who spent an awful lot of money on their system. Tell everybody what you would do, what you did to save these people.
Well, when they contacted me, going through, in evaluating, I got to the core issue. The system was technologically advanced, but it lacked the customization to the client's needs. So it's not necessarily, although there have been occasions where the right equipment was not in place to do accurately what the customer wanted. A lot of it was programming. But if the integrator that they were working with had listened to what they were told about how they needed it to work, they wouldn't have had to call me in, because if it was working the way they expected it or needed it to, we never would have had that consultation.
So Jay, was that something in the program that was embedded in there and all it needed to be was turned on, or was that something different?
Like I said, in a couple of cases, equipment was incorrect. It either wasn't at the integrity or the level of the equipment didn't meet the need of what needed to be done. But in most cases, it's that the equipment that's being installed isn't being customized or programmed properly based on the express needs of the end user. But, they then brought me in or bring me in to say, why isn't this working the way I asked for? And ultimately it comes down to 9 times out of 10, it's not customizing the program to meet that need of what they expressed.
Talk about products and programs and so on. Are there specific products or services that you provide that your competition does not?
Everybody has, well, once again, since I'm not an installation company, I don't have equipment. So I don't represent, I will, the only stipulation I have with any of my bidders is that if it's not vetted or if it's not approved by the federal government, if the government won't install it, I won't allow it to be installed in any one of the entities that I'm part of. And there are certain companies that are more hackable, getting back to that aspect of the conversation, that camera systems, access control systems, the infrastructure is not as strong, and therefore it becomes more susceptible to hacking and to being taken over in that respect and gaining entry, okay, that way. So that's one thing that's a criteria of mine, that if it's not recognized or allowable by the federal government to install in any of their institutions, it's not going into any building or any home that I have that I'm representing a client.
How
So-
often, Jay, do you get called in to fix another's
Work.
I want to say mistakes or fix another's work?
I don't know the exact number. All I can tell you it's way too many times.
Okay.
Because going back to, people don't listen. They don't put the needs of the consumer ahead of their desire to sell and get the system in place. And that's why I, really urge people to utilize me for my talents, and knowing that I'm their client advocate, because I put them first before I put the security integrator.
And
That's
let's
one of
be
the
honest,
things.
not everybody is. I'm sorry, Norm.
No problem. So that's one of the things that sets you apart from other people in the security business.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because not everybody is technically inclined, right, Norm and Jay? They're
Absolutely.
not. So when they, they're listening, okay, you're the expert, and then here they have the package that they're paying handsomely for, but it's not.
They want what they're paying for, and they want it to work.
Right.
They just don't want it. They want it to work and work properly.
Exactly.
But it goes back to, if you don't bring your prospective service providers or integrators in on a level playing field, you're going to get an unlevel playing field 3 times, because no 3 bids are going to match or even come close to device count, concept, method of operation, and knowing if it meets the customer's needs. And
what's interesting? I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Obviously, the person who has the problem got a hold of you somehow, some way. Yes. Somebody recommended you to them. You went in there, you fixed that problem. You know that you're not aware, that your awareness with these people is huge. They know who you are.
Correct.
You're creating a great story for yourself.
And that's one of the things that I pride myself on, and I even prided myself on when I was working for the national companies. And they talk, first of all, they talk about empowerment. Okay. You're empowered, empower yourself. You have no empowerment. They have a guideline, they have restrictions, they have requirements. Then, I'm all about relationship. Okay. And my relationship doesn't end with you just because we signed on the dotted line. Okay. And that's what I like about this too, is that just because I bring Linda to Norm Security, and he gets, I'm still very well into that whole relationship, because I'm going to be a sounding board. I'm going to be the go-to person. Linda's my client that I brought to you, Norm. Okay. And if you're not if you are not living up to her standard or her requirement, I may not be able to get out of the contract because of legalities and minimum term requirements. But sure as heck, I'm going to be spinning my wheels to find a new service provider for her, so that she doesn't stay in bed with somebody she doesn't feel is satisfying her needs.
Isn't it a blessing to have someone like him, Norm?
Absolutely.
Helping the consumer. We need more like Jay Cohen.
But not just helping them, successfully helping them. It's nice to say that this is wrong and that's wrong and whatever, and I can go. But actually, when you fix it, it works.
So how do we get in touch? How does our audience get in touch with Jay?
Through my website, there's a contact me aspect. They can get through there. The phone number that is on the screen right now, and or the email address. Everything comes to my cell phone, and if I can't pick up a call, a return call or return response is always within 2 hours of, unless of course you get me at 1 o'clock at night when I hopefully am sleeping. But ultimately, if I'm awake and I'm checking my correspondence every couple of hours because it's that important. If somebody's finding it important to reach out to me, it's my responsibility to get back to them just as quickly.
And you know what time it is?
Do I know what? I'm assuming it's ending time.
It's the time where you're going to tell everybody so that your awareness has been built up, the reasons why they should call you. You've already done it tonight within the hour. Now we take another minute before they throw me off air. Take another minute and tell people why they should be calling you and your company.
I'm passionate about what I do. At the end of the day, it's about you. It's about the consumer, and people in the corporations, the conglomerates, the larger than large companies. You're a blip to them. You're a number to them. You're not a name.
Of course.
Okay. I could tell you stories which we can save for another time, or for your calling me on an individual basis. We can have what they call a face-to-face, a one-to-one, and I can enlighten you. But at the end of the day, I'm there for you. I'd rather not make a deal, and I'd rather not get paid, but know that you were educated and that you got treated the way you deserve to be treated. That's why you should be dealing with me.
Great job. Great job.
Jay Cohen, the man who takes care of your security. I like that.
You going to patent it?
What was that?
No, I'm talking to Linda. Are you going to patent that saying?
I mean, all these thoughts coming in, all these ideas, how people can benefit from Jay because, they're just throwing out the money, not getting what they need. You need someone in your back pocket. You need that.
Costing them double or triple of what they should be paying with that because they're not using him. But anyway, Jay, thank you so much. You really did a great job tonight. All right. You really got your point across. And just hold on. Don't disappear. Linda, as always, sensational job. To everyone tuning in and watching the Business Awareness Hour, we thank you so much. And we'll look for you next Tuesday. And in the meanwhile, have a great weekend and be aware.
Be aware.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
This has been the Business Awareness Hour with Norman, the Awareness Guy. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.